Okay, today we're starting in Joshua 2, verse 2, and we're really starting to get into action here. So this is cool. So we'll start with verses 2 through 7. And Wanda, I think we'll start your way.
Oh, okay. 2 through 7?
Yeah.
And it was told to the king of Jericho, Behold, men of Israel have come here tonight to search out the land. Then the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, Bring out the men who have come to you, who entered your house, for they have come to search out all the land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them, and she said, True, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from. And when the gate was about to close at dark, the men went out. I do not know where the men went. Pursue them quickly, for you will overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof and hid them with the stalks of flax that she had laid in order on the roof. So the men pursued after them on the way to the Jordan as fast as the fords, and the gate was shut as soon as the pursuers had gone out.
Okay, so Canaan, the land that they're going to conquer, they have city-states. So each city is their own kingdom, and they have a king. Kind of like New York would be the kingdom of New York. We've always thought of, in California, LA as being the kingdom of LA anyway. And the mayor is the king. Mm-hmm. So this is the king of Jericho, that city. So he sees these people that are camped about 5 miles away across the river, and he's heard of what they've done, and he's getting pretty nervous. I mean, he has a city that you would think would be safe against anything, but he's kind of nervous. Last week we learned that Joshua sent 2 spies, and they went to the house of Rahab, and then someone spied the spies. They must have stood out somehow.
Maybe their clothing.
Their clothing, probably their speech. Their speech would be way different than anyone around there. Doesn't say, but they were.
And they were slinking along the inside wall.
Yeah, they had their trench coats and their hats on. So Rahab protects them. Oriental custom is if you have a guest in your house, you protect them. Remember the story of Lot and the angels. You protect your guests. But she lies. Is it okay for her to lie?
In this case,
she was protecting them.
yeah.
And she is a pagan. God does not condone lies, but she is not one of his people at this point. She is not being guided as much as the chosen people are. God is going to use that lie. Would God have protected his spies if she didn't lie? We'll never know.
Did she know who they really? It doesn't really say that.
She's saying, I don't know who they are, but she's telling the king that.
I know, but did
But
she
she's
really?
already said, hey, we know you guys are coming. We've heard about you.
Oh.
Or they're going to say that. Yeah. She's aware they don't, because she's hidden them. She
took also risk.
Yes, it took a lot of courage. She's putting her life.
Just like people who protect Jewish in the Second World War.
Yeah, that's another example of people that lied to protect people.
Yeah.
She was just part of God's plan. I mean,
Yeah.
I still marvel at how all his mysterious ways.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, they've happened to me. You know?
Yeah. So the flax thing, she hides them on her roof. Their roofs were flat, and they would harvest time. They would harvest the flax, and then they would soak it in water for 3 to 4 weeks, and to separate the fibers, and then they'd dry it in the sun. Mm-hmm. And that's what was happening on the roof. And then they'd make it into linen. So they had all these stalks of flax on the roof, so she hid them under under that flax. So she says, they were here, but I didn't know who they were, and they left, and you better go running after them, try to catch up with them. And it says they got as far as, the soldiers went as far as the fords on the Jordan River. So the fords mean there were places to cross the Jordan River, not 2 million people, but there were places where you could cross it. But again, we're talking, yeah, and they stop there. They know they're not going to cross there, the soldiers, but they think they've fled back to, these spies have fled, but they haven't. Verse 8 through 14.
Before the spies lay down for the night, she went up on the roof and said to them, I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the 2 kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven and above and on the earth below.
To 14.
Oh, 14.
Yeah, sorry.
Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death. Our lives for your lives, the men assured her. If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us the land.
Okay, so Rahab is a prostitute and a liar. What kind of example is she?
Well, God can use anyone.
That's the kind of example.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen all the men God chose, and the women before this, and they were liars and murderers, and God will use whoever is willing to be used by Him. She demonstrated that her faith was not just about works. She had faith. She knew who God was. She knew who she was, and she trusted God for her life. So, the way she saved it.
And I think that by saying this to them, it was encouragement. That it was good that they hear.
Joshua had sent them to find out what did the people think, and she's just telling them what they think. They are quaking in their boots because they've been hearing all this stuff about them coming up. So you can imagine if you heard, those of us that lived during the worst part of the Cold War, and we kept hearing the commies are coming,
Any minute they can hit the button.
and bomb shelters and everything else. Well, they were really living it. The Israelites are coming, and
But in Hebrews, that says by faith the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed.
Mm-hmm.
So it was because of her faith.
It's
Somewhere along the line.
Yeah. Well, she's showing faith here.
She has, but
She's out.
And God is going to protect her from then on because of the promise that was made.
Yeah.
He was planting his seed.
Yeah. So I like this quote. It's from Emery Campbell. He says, God uses crooked sticks to draw straight lines.
Oh, that's a good
All right.
That is good.
And I think
That's a good one.
I'm a crooked stick.
Yes, one way or the other, we were all like that.
Yeah.
Always see,
Yeah. And that's why her story is so important, because we can look at her and say, we do dumb things, we're bad, and God can use us too.
So, this whole family of hers now, she's put have had God put a protection around all of her family.
Yes.
So maybe all of these people become God worshipers, instead
they
of
could
idol
be.
worshipers. We don't know, but
Your family is the most influential
Oh my goodness.
group on you. I know even for teenagers and things teenagers who you think are rebellious and stuff, their parents have more influence on them than anyone else in the world.
yes, the parents are teaching them correctly.
Well, no, they have influence. Whether it's right influence or wrong
Right.
influence, they have influence.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to give them back to God.
Yeah.
Because, you did every one of them.
And so that's what's
I had
happening in
to,
our
every one of them.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's what's
Because I
happening in our
choose to live
society
differently.
today. We're turning them over to the colleges. After we have given them our influence, we're turning them over to the colleges, and the colleges are taking them from there and corrupting them.
Well, I think
So-
I think unfortunately they have a lot of influence from their peers. And probably if they don't have parents who are there emotionally or mentally or physically, then the peers are gonna have
Yeah.
all the influence.
Yeah.
Well, as a
Okay.
single parent, all of my kids were rebelling against me and everything else. So I just said, Lord, I'm done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They're yours.
yeah.
That's
what you have to do.
And as soon as I turned them over there, he started putting them on the right.
Okay, so let's get back to Rahab.
Yeah.
So this is she's showing faith. God has a plan that uses Rahab and these spies. These spies didn't show up at Rahab's house by accident. She makes a declaration of who God is, and it's not a fully developed faith because she's grown up with pagan idols and things, but it's a developing faith. And faith of a new believer, that's sometimes the most exciting faith because it is a new faith. Sometimes those of us have had that faith for a long time. We need to remember what it was like back at the beginning, how excited we were. Notice it says, we heard it, not just she. Their whole nation heard about these Israelites. Where are they? She's the one God is using.
Yes.
The least likely, too,
Mhm.
being a prostitute.
Yeah.
Parting of the Red Sea would have knocked my socks off.
Yeah. And they heard about the parting of the Red Sea and everything that happened in between.
And basically, all the men in Jericho were afraid because it said there was no spirit left in any man because of you. So they were all shaking in their boots,
I know.
Yeah.
And
even though they went out to chase them.
Yeah.
I think they were probably like,
Well, they were thinking, well, there's two of them. We can get two.
so
2 million? I don't know.
Yeah.
But two, we can get two. But they don't even get the two. And notice when she wants her family treated kindly, she doesn't talk about herself at all in here.
No.
She wants her family taken care of, and God will honor that and
but
take care
then
of
she
her.
does say, deliver our lives from death. So
Yeah.
she alluded to herself, but didn't
Yeah.
say, save me, save me.
Yeah. She wants to leave her sinful life and join with the people of God. And she does that. We know that because she becomes the grandmother of David.
I've got a question on that.
Mhm.
I forget where it says in the Bible, but it says that you should always, forgive your siblings and basically support them and, keep speaking the word of God to them. But isn't there a point? I mean, I had to give them all back to God, so am I wrong for doing that?
As long as you keep praying for them,
Yeah, pray for them.
you,
That's all
you don't
can
let
do.
them pull you into their, but keep praying for them. And,
Because I forget where it said, I was looking, Mr. Google isn't always right, by the way, but I was looking and it said that no matter what they've done, no matter what wrongdoings or something that they have done, that you should always encourage them. You should always.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say the Bible says you should encourage them, because what are you encouraging them for? You need to encourage them toward Christ, but not encourage them in what they are doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay. So now that we're in the stories, these are going to be long chunks of verses. So not like 1 or 2 verses like we're used to. So this one is verses 15 through 21.
Then she let them down by a rope through the window, since she lived in a house that was built into the wall of the city. Go to the hill country so that the men pursuing you won't find you, she said to them. Hide yourselves there for 3 days until they return. Afterwards, go on your way. The men said to her, we will be free from this oath you made us swear, unless when we enter the land you tie this scarlet cord to the window through which you let us down. Bring your father, mother, brothers, and all your father's family into your house. If anyone goes out the doors of your house, his blood will be on his own head, and we will be innocent. But if anyone with you in the house should be harmed, his blood will be on our heads. And if you report our mission, we are free from the oath you made us swear. Let it be as you say, she replied, and she sent them away. After they had gone, she tied the scarlet cord to the window. So the 2 men went into the hill country. Is that it?
Yeah, that was it. Okay.
I got on the roll. Couldn't find it.
Yeah, I know you were. Okay, so she helps them escape out the window. So that shows that her home was in the wall. Now, Jericho had 2 walls. They were about 15 feet apart, and they were about 30 feet high. So think a 3-story building. Big and wide. They were wide. Well, who is going to attack a city like that with 2 30 feet high walls?
Yes.
They think possibly that she lived in the second wall, and there were like almost like walkways across to the outer wall and window. There's like differing opinions, but of course it's not something important, or would have told us about it. So she says, run for the hills. Really, run for those hills. Well, those hills are the opposite direction of where they want to be. They are going farther in. But in those hills are limestone caves that they can hide in. So they go to where they're going to be safe and be able to hide out for a few days. And then she's given a signal to tell the soldiers that are going to attack where her home is.
So she would have had to live on top of the outer wall. So that
yeah, it's hard to tell.
The cord would have gone down the outside of the wall.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine exactly how that all worked.
She must have been a big, strong woman too, because she let them down. Not that that's important. I'm just saying that's just a minor detail.
Yeah.
Anyway, go
Yeah.
on, sorry.
Despite her faith and the promises of these spies, she would not have been saved without that scarlet cord. It took her faith to lower that and have faith that would save her. The other thing was she had to stay in her home. She had to bring her family in her home. If they didn't come in her home, if they just said, "Phooey on you, I'm going to go," they were dead.
Yeah.
And with her being a prostitute, you just wonder how her family, did they accept her? And yeah,
It was probably in a pagan culture, it was probably an honored career.
Yeah, that's right.
Really?
Oh yeah, they had temple prostitutes.
What?
Each of the gods had prostitutes that worked at the temple. So you could go get your pleasure at the temple because their gods were all about pleasure. So being a prostitute was not the same degree that we think of.
Yeah.
Now to the Israelites, that was
I
definitely
never
sinful.
did it, but
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
So what color is that?
Scarlet.
Scarlet, which is red. Do you think that's an accident?
No.
I mean, there was, I saw lots of commentaries that said, oh, don't put too much faith in that. Red's just a color. Others are saying, oh, we've seen a lot of red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Red symbolizes blood.
Blood.
It's a reminder of the Passover where they had to put blood on the doorposts.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's a symbol of the Messiah to come, his blood. Red's an important color.
It's true from Genesis to Revelation.
One of the phrases that's used to talk about how God worked from the Old Testament to the New Testament to bring the Savior is the scarlet cord, the scarlet thread that you see through. So this is part of that pathway. So she immediately puts her faith in that cord and she hangs it. Now, scarlet cord hanging out a window
Wouldn't somebody notice that?
must not have been a problem.
Well, I'm wondering.
And she's a
because-
prostitute, so maybe it's.
But I'm wondering how many went outside the walls except these
Yeah,
men because
they might not have spent
they
a lot.
they were afraid.
These guys are
and
5
I think
miles
they
away,
were
yeah.
staying inside.
Yeah,
The Indians are coming.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense.
Okay, so she represents the Gentile nation, the enemy. She's a woman, second-class citizen for a lot of them, and she's a prostitute, someone that anyone but pagans would just reject. But God chooses her, and she plays a critical role. Later, she's going to marry an Israelite named Salmon, and they would have a descendant named Boaz, who would eventually marry Ruth, and they would have a grandson named David,
Oh,
She was
really?
who would lead to
the
Jesus.
descendant of Jesus.
It was his great grandmother.
Yeah,
I see.
she is an important woman in history. Now, tradition has it that one of the spies was Salmon, the guy she marries. Or I guess you'd probably say Salmon.
Okay, say that again.
One of the Jewish traditions is that Salmon, the guy she marries, was one of the 2 spies. But we never get the names of the spies, so we don't know.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Joshua was one of the spies.
no,
He was one of the original
No.
one of the 12.
He was
that
one of
went
the-
in
When they
Yeah.
did it
Oh,
earlier.
this is a whole different group.
yeah, this is Jericho. Yeah, no, he's too busy being the leader. Yeah. Okay, now here's a shorter one. So Dottie verses 22 through 24.
So the 2 men went into the hill country and stayed there 3 days until the pursuers had returned. They searched all along the way but did not find them. Then the men returned, came down from the hill country, and crossed the Jordan. They went to Joshua, son of Nun, and reported everything that had happened to them. They told Joshua, the Lord has handed over the entire land to us. Everyone who lives in the land is also panicking because of us.
Okay, so they return, take 3 days and return. Now, do you see them providing any real tactical information, like the walls are this thick and they're that high, or we don't see any of that. They're just saying that land's ready to attack. Let's go.
Well, didn't they build the walls pretty thick?
They were thick. In fact, I think they say somewhere that you could drive 3 chariots across at a time.
Wow.
So they're not only tall, they are wide.
So three
walls.
stories and three.
3 stories and 3
wide.
chariots wide. I'll have to double check on where the 3 chariots wide thing comes from, but that's what I've
Can you
heard before.
imagine?
Yeah,
How many?
they're fortified.
Yeah. Who's going to attack that?
Right, let's understand about Rahab's house built into that wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like
They-
seems like that would be a good location for somebody who could defend the.
It was meant that was an important region. It was
Yeah.
kind of the tie between the north and south of Canaan and in the valley, and you had to go through there to get almost anywhere. And it was one of the most heavily fortified cities. If these Israelites can take Jericho, they can take anywhere. What a booster for their morale that'll be. And remember when the 12 spies came back before, they pretty much were saying, we can't do it.
Oh, because of the giant.
And these two are saying, we can do it.
Yeah.
You know, the first two said pretty much all they said the first time was, we can't do it. Now they're saying, we can do this. God has this ready for us. God has a plan for them to save Rahab. And she is going to be saved and be one of their people when the world would look at her and say, she is not worth saving. How many people in this world get overlooked because someone thinks they're not worth saving? It's not up to us.
Anyone can be saved.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
If
it's,
they want to be saved.
and it's not up to us to figure out who that is and who that isn't. It's up to us to tell everybody about Christ. Okay, Joshua chapter 3, verse 1 and 2.
Then Joshua rose early in the morning, and they set out from Shittim, and they came to the Jordan, he and all the people of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. At the end of 3 days, officers went through the camp.
Okay, so they had started off, yours may say the Acacia Grove, same place. So it's starting to happen. They pick up and move to the river. Now they have been 5 miles away from the river. But it's a fairly flat route to go there. So they move and camp. And they wait for 3 days. Now, it's during these 3 days that they think the spies were hiding and came back. Some people try to make this 3-day thing into something symbolic, like the time Jesus spent in the tomb, but it doesn't really tie in really strongly. But God loves the number 3. It's an important number to him. 3 is the number of the Trinity. It's the number symbolizing his holiness. So we see a lot of things in 3s. You notice we don't see a lot of things in 4s or 2s.
Yeah.
We see a lot of 3s and 5s and 7s.
And 7s, yeah, 3 and 7. Yeah.
Those are the holy numbers. God doesn't like even numbers, I guess. Although there were 2 spies, so.
I have to smile to myself because my address is full of 3s. My condo number is 7. They have completion.
Yeah. Okay, so they are camped at this river. At this flooded river that is full of rapids and everything else. They're probably thinking, we're crossing that? And so we'll get into that. So, one thing for a couple spies to go across this river, but all the people.
So now, are these just the men that are going over now? Oh, this is everybody?
Everybody but the women and crops and a lot of the fighting men from the 2.5 tribes that are going to stay on one side. But most of the 40,000 of their fighting men are going with them. But as far as the rest of the tribes, everybody and everything, they're going over. So according to Jewish tradition, this is they did this 40 days after Moses' death. But we don't see that in Scripture. It's one of those Jewish tradition things.
Didn't they say that they waited until they had met that time of mourning or something?
Yeah, they had waited 30 days. Yeah. So they're saying the Jewish tradition adds another 10 days after that before they move. Okay, verse 3 through 5. Miss Betty?
In chapter 3,
Yes.
3 through 5. They commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, with the Levitical priest carrying it, then you shall set out from your place and go after it. However, there shall be between you and it a distance of about 2,000 cubits by measure. Do not come near it, that you may know the way by which you shall go, for you have not passed this way before.
One more verse.
One more. Then Joshua said to the people, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you.
Okay, so today, if we saw a major river like that and we needed to cross it, we'd send the Army Corps of Engineers and build a bridge. But they don't have that. And so they got to be a little fearful of crossing that.
So they sent the priests instead.
Yeah. So yeah, they send priests.
Well, my note here says that it was from the Galilee to the Dead Sea, the river dropped 600 feet in 65 miles. So that's 100 feet every mile. Think of the rapids. Yeah, place to go.
And we're going to see.
And then the spring rains and snow melt.
Yeah, it is very swollen river, and we'll see. It's got a bunch of big rocks at the bottom. I mean, I think a lot of us think it was a nice smooth river. No, there's a lot of rocks, so that makes rapids even more rapidy. So there are a lot of rapids, and they're looking at it going, "We're crossing that thing." So it's the Levitical priests that are going to be carrying this time. Now, back in Numbers, we were told it was the Kohathites who were part of the tribe of Levi. They were Moses' relatives, but this doesn't specify just Moses' relatives. Who knows what 12 Levitical priests they choose? So they are told to stay 2,000 cubits behind. 2,000 cubits is about 1,000 yards.
That's what, 3 football fields?
No, that's 10 football fields.
3,000 yards. Yeah.
10
right,
football
you're
fields.
You're correct. Thank you.
It's about 3/4 of a mile behind.
Right.
It would be like if you laid the Eiffel Tower down and you stayed that distance away. That is pretty far to stay back behind that thing. There's some people that say, you know how in the New Testament Jesus got in trouble for traveling on the Sabbath? So there was only so far you were allowed to travel on the Sabbath, and some people say this is where they get that distance. You could travel 2,000 cubits. They say it's from this. But it doesn't say that. So why so far of a distance? There's a couple reasons. One, because that ark is holy. They needed to completely respect it. But one of the reasons we're given is so everyone can have a clear view of that ark. They needed to see that ark going.
Sounds like they weren't supposed to be too close to it.
No.
Out of reverence? Yeah.
Out of reverence, and
they weren't.
As it was moving, they wanted everyone to have a chance to see it.
Because that's what was
and stand 1,000 yards back. I mean, if you had bad eyesight, you're not seeing anything that far. But
Ark of the Covenant wasn't that big, was it?
No, it wasn't. and I started thinking, well, back in Numbers, one of those, we learned when they carried the ark, it was wrapped in, I don't remember what part of the tabernacle, but it was wrapped in cloth, wrapped and wrapped and wrapped. They weren't to carry it without that, so I'm wondering, is it still all wrapped up? Are they having to carry it all wrapped up? So before this all happens, they need to get spiritually prepared. They need to make sure their focus is on God before this happens. They don't know what's going to happen, but they need to have their hearts prepared. So in the wilderness, what were they led by?
The cloud.
Yeah, no more cloud. They've reached the promised land. The cloud is not going to be there. Now they're going to be led by the ark. During their wanderings, the ark was in the middle. There were tribes in front and tribes in back. Now it's in the front, and they're to follow it. And when they see the ark move, they're to move. Just as when they saw the cloud move, they were to move. Now it's the ark. Move when you see that thing moving.
Well, they didn't have the ark before the cloud and the fire.
No, yeah, they had to. That cloud came first, and then they built the ark. But even after they built the ark, they still followed that cloud.
God was showing grace by giving them always something to follow.
Yeah. So they were to do all this, get ready, and then sit back and watch the miracle. Okay, just verse 6.
I'm sorry?
Verse 6.
Okay. Then he said to the priest, take the ark of the covenant and go on ahead of the people. So they carried the ark of the covenant and went ahead of them.
Okay, it's a parade with the ark and the lady. Everyone gets to see this ark being carried. This shows them that God is leading them. They are following God. So let's see what's gonna happen next. Verse 7 and 8.
The Lord, you want me to go ahead? Okay.
You'll have to stop me because mine's.
Oh, here.
Okay.
Okay.
And the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so they may know that I am with you, as I was with Moses. Tell the priests who carry the ark of the covenant, when you reach the edge of the Jordan's waters, go and stand in the river.
Okay. Okay, so as Joshua takes this step of faith, God is going to encourage him all the way. He's with him the entire way. He wants to encourage us along the way. He's with us on our walk of faith. And we may miss it if we're not careful. So, yeah, God gives instructions that just make no human sense at all. Go tell those priests with this holy thing to go in that water.
And stand there.
And stand there. The most holy thing you got, go stand in that river with it.
And with those rapids coming down.
Yeah, the rapids coming down. But God says, I'm gonna show you I am with you as much as I was with Moses. So he tells the priests to go stand still in the Jordan. And there's a lot of questions on exactly where in the river does he tell them to stand. Does he tell them to stand like just at the edge?
All these people are going to get in there. How wide is the river?
It's miles and miles and miles and miles. It's a long river. The Jordan River.
She's talking about
across.
Yeah.
It's wide. It is really wide. So the people would be thinking, this is impossible.
So all these people have to get in the water.
We probably
Well,
have
first
a lot of
it's just-
doubters.
Yeah.
First it's just the priest.
Right now it's just the priest.
Yeah, right now, just the priest.
Oh, I thought we're all.
Oh, no. It's the priest taking the Ark of the Covenant into this water.
They're all gonna have to get in the water.
Oh, they're all going to have to get there.
Go have to cross it.
They're all going to have to get across.
Yeah.
Some versions say they were told to wade in the water. Others say stopping at the edge of the water. Some say take a few steps and stop there. Whatever. The ark is supposed to get in that water
And stand still.
and stand still.
Google says the Jordan River is 15 miles wide. So.
Yeah, and this is at its widest. It's at its flood stage. Another accident? You think God?
No.
Because he could have had them, probably if they had crossed a month earlier.
The ark was built on poles,
They used poles to carry it.
so it was up above the water.
But the men were in the water.
Yeah, the men were, well, no, not necessarily, because where they were crossing, it was over your head. It was deep.
Oh, yeah.
It was,
The ark was in the water?
they were, from their view, they're carrying the ark into the water. That's their view. But let's see what really happens. They think they're carrying this ark into the water. And they're probably saying, I hope it floats.
Yeah.
But let's see what happens in verse 9 through 13.
Okay. Then Joshua said to the sons of Israel, "Come here and hear the words of the Lord your God." And Joshua said, "By this you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will assuredly dispossess from before you the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Hivite, the Perizzite, the Girgashite, the Amorite, and the Jebusite. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is crossing over ahead of you into the Jordan. Now then, take yourselves 12 men from your tribes of Israel, 1 man from each tribe. And it shall come about when the soles of the feet of the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan shall be cut off, and the waters which are flowing down from above shall stand in one heap."
Okay, so first off, Joshua calls everyone to come and hear him. Now, how does his voice carry to 2 million people?
With rushing water behind
Yeah,
him.
with a rushing river.
Yeah.
God may have amplified his voice. We don't know. We aren't told. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But we don't know. But it did. So it's important that Joshua describes God. He's describing him as a living God. That's kind of a dig at all those pagan gods they're going to meet, who are all dead. I'm sure you've seen, I see it on Facebook every once in a while, a thing about how Jesus is the only living, when Jesus died, he came back again. All these other founders, Buddha and Confucius and Muhammad, they're in a grave. You can go find their body, but not Jesus. So God is a living God. Now, he's doing a miracle, and when he does a miracle, it is to show his power and glory.
Yeah, but may I say, before the God did miracle, they have to do their duty, step in.
Yes.
Otherwise, if you don't step out,
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. That water doesn't stop running until they step in.
Right.
They have to take the step of faith. They could have stood on the shore and said, "Oh, we're not going in that water,"
Yeah.
and it wouldn't have happened. They
Or
had to
say,
show the
Lord,
faith.
please help divide this.
Yeah.
But obedience.
They didn't have any idea how this was going to happen, but they had faith that God would do something, and he came through. Now, he says that he is going to drive out all those ites. And the wording is, he is absolutely going to do that. He's going to drive them all out. But we're going to see, he doesn't. So, did he lie?
No. Because there is a but.
the problem comes in that when it actually comes time to drive them out, the Israelites didn't have the faith to follow God's commands. He would have wiped them all out, but the Israelites didn't do what they were supposed to do.
That's what we were talking about last week, I think, that the problem is that they didn't do what God told them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then God says, take 12 men. We don't know what they're used for yet. We'll see that next chapter. But at this point, we don't know what they're for. Just, okay, choose 12 men.
Yeah.
So, okay, verse 14 and 15.
So when the people came to cross the Jordan, the priest carrying the Ark of the Covenant went ahead of them. Now the Jordan was at flood stage all during harvest, and yet as soon as the priests who carried the Ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge. Is that right?
Okay, yeah, mine has a parenthetical phrase that says, now the Jordan overflows all its banks throughout the time of harvest. So it adds that in my version. So this is where we find out that the flood is at flood stage. The snows would be melting from Mount Hermon, which was in the north, and people did not cross that river that time of year. It makes it March or April. Now, normally at that area of the river, it would be about 20 yards wide. But with the flooding, it was, you had
15 miles.
15 miles?
I don't know what today, nowadays. Or
Yeah, I don't know. But it was really wide, super wide. And deeper than you could stand, and rapids, and so
Is it still wide today, probably?
it still gets the flood stage. I don't know how wide it gets today, though. And again, if God had them go like a month earlier, it wouldn't have been at this flood stage. But he had his plans. And in the meantime, the people of Jericho probably have a lot of confidence in those walls.
Yeah.
And the fact that that river is flooded. No one's going to come get us from across that river because they can't get across that river. Well, God has his ways. So the people get all their belongings together. They are going in with all of their possessions, with everything. They are entering the promised land. And again, the only ones staying behind are the 2.5 tribes that are going to stay on the eastern side, with the exception of 40,000 warriors. So the priests step foot in that water, and it stops. And it dries up. But again, they had to take that step of faith.
Yes.
And it's land, and it's not all rocks that they have to walk over, right?
We're going to see it is really rocky. It's a really rocky riverbed, because in the next chapter we're going to see them picking up rocks. It's not a smooth, sandy. You got to get all these people.
Oh, well, it said dry land.
Well, dry. It was dry, but it would have been rocky bottoms.
Okay. It seems like to go 15 miles would take a long time.
15 miles?
15.
Oh, if it was that wide. I'm not sure how wide that river was at that.
But still, to get that many people to go through this.
But look what happened at the Red Sea.
You're right.
Yeah.
The same.
So let me read this, and then we'll talk about that a little. Okay, 16 through the end of the chapter. The waters coming down from above stood and rose in a heap very far away at Adam, the city that is beside Zarethan. And those flowing down toward the Sea of Arabah, the Salt Sea, were completely cut off. And the people passed over opposite Jericho. Now the priest bearing the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firmly on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, and all Israel was passing over on dry land until the nation finished passing over the Jordan. So the river stops flowing, but it stops flowing pretty far upstream. In fact, that city that they're talking about, that's 18 miles upstream. And it stops. So I was thinking, I think we always picture of them going in columns across. Why couldn't they have spread out 18 miles and just everybody get across? In fact, in the next chapter, it's going to tell us they rushed across. So rather than this tribe following this tribe, maybe they all spread out and went across. But we don't know. We know they rushed across. And in the meantime, remember we got those priests standing there holding that ark.
So that they passed by it.
Yeah. But they could pass by it from a long distance. So no water was reaching the Dead Sea. Now, don't you think the Canaanites in the area would be thinking, what is going on here? The ones that are way downriver, and there's no river all of a sudden.
Happened to the water.
Now, there's people that will say, well, there's been history of a couple times that there have been earthquakes up, the northern part of the Jordan River, and limestone cliffs have fallen and blocked the river. So the river stopped flowing. So some people will say, well, God used an earthquake. But it was the times that were recorded, one in the year 1267 and one in 1927, the river was not at flood stage at that point. And even if God did that, he did it at the right time, and he let the river go at the right time.
It doesn't say that though.
No, it doesn't say that.
It rose up in a large heap.
Yeah.
Does God ever do anything wrong?
No. Well, and these other two times that they recorded it, the riverbed was not dry. You can imagine when a river stops, what's the riverbed going to be? It's going to be mud. We see that God made it dry. So these people are going to go across on dry, whatever the riverbed is, and I still say it had to be rocky because they're going to be picking up these rocks. So not the nice, smooth, beachy type sand stuff. So we
just to share a little humor out of it. The first time I chickened out on leaving. The second time he sent a tornado through my backyard and says, "You aren't too old to go on." I was gone.
Yeah.
Seriously. True story.
So these priests are showing a lot of faith. They're the first ones to step in, and they're going to be the last ones to step out. And this ark is central to everything. We've seen the word ark 14 times in this. So that ark is important. That's God leading them. So next week, we'll find out what those 12 men were for. Okay. Let me turn.